So guys, now the way this webinar is sort of structured is basically we'll start with answering the first question, which is whether should you choose Big Four or you should choose GTBDO or another big firm, or should you go for a smaller mid-sized firm? And in what scenario should you choose a big firm versus what scenario should you choose a smaller or mid-sized firm? That is something that we'll be addressing as the first question. Second question that we'll be addressing is which domain should you pursue your articleship in? So each of our speakers, as you see, have pursued articleship right from stat audit to internal audit to DT, IDD, transfer pricing, valuations across all domains. They've covered and they've pursued their articleship. So each of them will be sharing their experience and why should you choose or not choose a particular domain. And last but not the least, we'll also talk about which location should you particularly go for a metro or could you go for a non-metro as well. As for the participants of this session, guys, we'll keep the Q&A towards the end, the last 15 minutes of the session. Each of the speakers will address you from their experience and try to answer all of your questions together. But if you have any more questions, feel free to answer ask towards the end of this session. Any question that you've already asked will anyways be covered as a part of the session. Starting with the first important topic, which is should you go for a Big Four or a GTBDO, or should you go for a smaller mid-sized firm? And I'll request Aarshi if she could go first and share her experience on why did she end up choosing to go for a Big Four articleship, and according to her, should one go for a Big Four or a non-Big Four? Over to you, Aarshi.
Yeah. So firstly, heartiest congratulations to everyone on clearing your CA enters. So I was very clear at the start of my CA career that I would end up doing a corporate job and I would not go for my own practice. So I think that decision made me very clear that I want to enter into Big Four. Not having an all India rank in CA enter, I might had some confusion in the start that would I get Big Four or not? Would I end up getting Big Six, or would I have to pursue my career in mid-size only? So I think this is a decision point that you have to make at this point, that whether you want to do a mid-size, like you want to do your own practice, or you want to end up in Big Four, or you want to end up in corporate career at the end of your CA journey. So I think that is one decision which will influence your decision at this point of time. But having said that, I was flexible at the time of giving interviews for my articleship. I gave interviews at Big Four, Big Six. I gave interviews at top 20 firms also. I gave interview at Luthra, and I gave interview at TR Chadha. So at the end of my articleship hunt, I was selected across all these domains and across all these firms. But I always wanted to go in Deloitte. It had some connection. I don't know. I always wanted to do stat audit because, see, I think which domain you should choose is majorly upon your interests. So I had my seniors who had done their articleship in Deloitte in stat audit, done their articleship across tax also. So I had different people having different exposures and having their different POVs. So I think that made my decision. And I always wanted to do audit because when we do our studies in CA Inter also, we get to know that audit. So there is a common myth across audit that you tend to travel a lot. You get different clients, different exposures. But I would just like to tell you that in Big Four, this isn't the case in every team, in every every partner which you're working with. So for example, I was working out of Gurgaon location. I had done my articleship in majorly across fintech clients. So I did not get to travel a lot. I did not get to travel at all, except the stock audits. And I did not change my location. So that is a common myth. If you're going for stat audit by thinking that I would get to travel, I would get to, exposure to different clients, that might not be the case in Big Four. I'm not sure about the GT video, but across GT video also, they tend to give the clients to you in such a way that you do not leave your locations. But if I talk about mid-size, there is travel which is involved heavily in your mid-size audit firms, because an audit in mid-size, the clients are spread across various regions. So you get to travel to Himachal, you get to travel to their factories, you get to travel across Delhi, Gurgaon, Mumbai, etc. So I think that is one difference which is there in audit across Big Four, Big Six, and mid-size. If I would talk about exposure, the exposure you get in Big Four or Big Six as compared to mid-size and audit itself is the difference of clients. In Big Four and Big Six, they have major clients, and you tend to audit those clients repeatedly in your career. So for example, if I did two major clients in my 2.5 years articleship, and I was doing that client repeatedly. It is not the case that you're doing same things, but it is largely the same exposure you get, the same areas, the same. So luckily my client was it had LR, limited reviews, it had stat audit. It had group reporting. So that is why I was stuck in one client at, across all my 2.5 years. It might not be the case in GT video. I have my friends working in video. I was also selected in video. There, the exposure which you get client wise is larger as compared to Big Four, because in Big Four, when you're stuck in one large client, for example, listed client, you would do that client repeatedly. So I think that is one difference. In mid-size, if I talk about, not talk about only audit, but talk about different domains also, if you want to get a specialized, career, or you want to get into a specialized field, then you should go for Big Four, because the exposure you get in Big Four as compared to mid-size has a huge difference. Whatever audit we learn in your inter journey, that is completely applied in audit in Big Four or Big Six. There is slight difference in Big Six also, because if I talk about GT video, I've known people coming from GT video and Deloitte in my team. They were not following the complete set of rules or complete set of standards on auditing which we as Deloitte follows. So if you want to get core specialized knowledge of audit, how it is starting from what we read, risk assessments to controls to TOD and to everything, that is being applied at Big Four. And one thing, it also varies in Big Four across teams as well. There are teams which do not follow this. They just tend on keep repeating the past working papers. It might be the case. But luckily I was under such a partner who takes these things seriously. So I got to know the exposure of everything. I think that is one major difference. The another subse important thing is that after qualifying, there are certain filters applied while your job hunt and a job hunt, that you must have Big Four in your articleship. Otherwise, they won't even select you. For example, J&J, if I talk about, they have one major criteria: Big Four plus rank. So I think that is one major thing, that you won't be get a chance to get interviewed at least in campus also, because there are multiple people, multiple aspirants joining, and but the jobs are limited. So I think the one filter which they apply is that whether you have Big Four or not. I've known my friends got a very good ranks in CA final, but still do not have a good job at this point of time, because they did not have Big Four as their articleship. So I think Big Four doesn't define how you perform, but it acts as a filter at the end of your job hunt. So I think that is very important. And one suggestion I just want to give you, that don't restrict yourself to this. Just keep applying across different domains, because you don't know at the end where will you end up. So giving interviews at every opportunity you get at this point of time is very important. Next thing I want to address, like which domain you want to select, or would actually Big Four help? Yeah, I would say that Big Four will help at certain points of your career, because you are talking to CXOs, you're talking to big clients at everyday basis. Like if you're doing audit, you will get to interact with everyone, because it depends on your team also, like how much independence they're giving to you at that point of time. For example, in my case, I was handling a private client on my own. So me and my partner were doing that audit. So at that point, I was the only person who was interacting with the CXO. I was the only person who was interacting with the finance controller. So I think that sense of independence and autonomy, which my exposure gave me, has ended up me being here. So I think that is very important. But in mid-size, I think that might not be the case, because in mid-size, I've seen my friends do not like, audit is not the core. They tend to do many things regarding tax, GST, internal audit as well. So audit is just a kind of formality maybe for them, because at the end the numbers would get signed. But in Big Four, the sign of a partner has a major stake. So that is why audit in Big Four and Big Six is being taken seriously. So if you want to start your career, and you want to, I've seen many people, if they want to do mid-size, if they want to end up being in practice, what they did was, I think they started their career with Big Four, did 1 year in Big Four or Big Six, and then they switched to mid-size. I think that is also a good combination which you can do. If you get Big Four in the start, but you want to end up being in practice, you can get 1 year of exposure in Big Four, get to know what are the things followed there, and then you can also switch to mid-size, because managing studies and everything, I think that would be covered at the end. But that also becomes difficult in Big Four and Big Six, because of the stress and because of the work like balance which Big Four and Big Six offers. And that is one good thing you can do at the start of this, because ultimately you have both exposures, Big Four and mid-size. I think that is a deadly combination which people have at certain point. So I think Divesh, over to the next speaker. I
No,
have taken.
absolutely helpful, Arshi. I just go on to add one more thing. Basically, guys, one thought here is, and I've seen multiple people of late posting that combination of Big Four plus mid-size. And if you want to go for a practice, absolutely that is the right thing to do. But having said that, in a few job opportunities, that combination might not be looked in the best regard. They might probably think that you could not manage Big Four stress, and which is why you have gone into a mid-size firm. So if you are sure of a corporate job, I would say do not make the mistake of 1 year Big Four and 1 year mid-size or a small firm. But if you are absolutely sure of practice, you can absolutely go ahead with that combination. So that's just one piece of advice from my end to add. Super. Thanks, Arshi. And over to our next speaker, which is Samay, who's done his articleship at a mid-sized firm in Pune. Over to you, Samay. You can introduce about your articleship experience, talk a little bit more about your firm. Why did you choose the small firm, or I would say mid-sized firm articleship? Over to you.
So hello, congratulations everyone on getting the tag of CA finalist. From here and after, the life would change. Trust me. So coming to my question, why did I choose a mid-sized firm? So yeah, even I had offers from Big Fours, Big Six, very small firms, and a upper mid-sized firm. So the filtering criteria, I was very much confused about कि मुझे आगे क्या करना है. So I was really confused. Do I need to practice stat audit for my life, or do I need to go in corporate, or do I need to go in practice, or do I need to do something else? So there I thought, why not to choose upper mid-size firm, because there is a departmentalization. You get varied exposure, you get a good bandwidth of time, you get multiple clients, you get multiple exposure, and at the end when you go for a job and post qualification, all the doors are open for you. So I think I chose a safer option, which will open all my doors in future. So that's the reason why I chose upper mid-size firm. Coming towards the specific points about why you should choose a non-big four big six firm as compared to those. So the first point, which is most important, is time and bandwidth that you get, because as we know, big fours and big six have long working hours. You don't get enough time to study, etc., etc. But comparatively, what I faced in my personal experiences, I got a lot of time. So in inter I scored very average marks in many subjects. Example, in tax I scored 41, in FM Eco I scored 42, but cut down to CA final I got a rank. So I guess articleship played a major role in it, because I got a lot of time to focus on studies. So as per my perspective, CA banna zyada important hai. So I thought that way. That's the reason I chose a safer option. Second thing, as rightly Aarshi mentioned, and even I have heard with a lot of my seniors, my colleagues, etc., that when you go into Big Four, you get stuck on a client. Though the work is repeated, you get newer areas, but the business is same. Comparatively, what I faced during my articleship is I got exposure across industries, ranging from manufacturing, service, healthcare, jewelry, hospital, etc. Uh, Also, as I said, I was not just stuck towards the stat audit. I did tax audit, I did trust audit, I did internal audit a little bit. And when you go into an mid-size firm, you don't follow a very structured approach. And I feel I look it as an advantage also, because you're not just stuck on the documentation part. You go beyond that. You just understand the business. And for me, understanding that really helped. Really, I gained many connections over across industries. The next one I would bring up here is the leadership skills that you get in these firms, because I feel there is less management, less hierarchy, so you are the man behind everything. So in third year of my articleship, I had 3 clients per day. So I used to visit 2 to 3 hours per client. I used to lead 3 teams at once. Being in articleship and leading 3 teams is quite a big leadership opportunity, I feel. So from ranging from planning the audit to execution to not just sitting on the laptop and working, but to understand the business, that was a major thing. Um I would like to drag upon a little bit more upon the documentation part. Here, the documentation is less, understanding the business is more. So I feel if you are, really worried about the documentation or what you have typically studied in audit, it will be less followed in a mid-size or a small-size firm, because here, completing the audit and getting onto the next client matters more. So you get varied experience. Even I did limited reviews, so it's not like that. You go in big four and you would get a very good exposure. You can get it in mid-size firm as well. So I did limited reviews. I did one of the biggest hospitals in India, the trust audit, the tax audit, the stat audit. And the important point was my clients kept on changing. So at any point, I didn't feel bored. The other point that I would bring towards is the departmentalization in a mid-sized firm. I feel even that is good, because if you are clear about your mindset, that I was very clear that I don't want to do GST and income tax at all. So that's the reason I chose upper mid-sized firm. There was a departmentalization in it. I was okay with anything in audit, but I was not okay with GST and tax. So that's the reason I chose this departmentalization. But one thing that I noticed in my firm was, when September, October gets over, the season gets completed, and the major work starts flowing from March. So there is a 4 5 months gap. In that period, you can learn more about, you can go cross departments, you can learn about tax, GST, just for knowledge purpose, just to know how to approach life ahead, how to cut the boxes which I don't want to follow post qualification. So that really helps. The another thing is, I would now come towards the very small size firm. If you are very sure about the practice, I think, don't think too much, just go for a small size firm. You need to learn ground reality, you need to learn the basic complications in ITR, GST returns, etc. You need to have cross domain exposure to start with your own. That really helps, because uh, the thing is, you need to get clients when you are doing in a small size firm. So you approach with the partner directly in those kind of firms. There is no hierarchy there. So that really helps you to navigate a path to how you should go ahead. So even bringing to that point, there are filters while you qualify after as a CA. Many companies follows big four articleship or industrial training, etc. But I feel the doors are not limited. You can grow cross domains. I am into AI in supply chain management right now, doing my articleship from mid-sized firm. It's a very talked domain, like artificial intelligence. I'm into it. So opportunities are endless, but if you are confused that what you want to do, and if you cannot navigate, even after deep thinking, I would prefer you to going into a mid-sized firm and choosing audit as a domain, because that is a very general domain. You can get into anything after that. So yeah, that's all about me.
Thanks a lot, Samay, for your views. I think all I would say is, guys, there's no one size fits all approach, right? So you will have to listen to all the speakers carefully and evaluate for yourself what is the archetype, what is the particular category that you are falling into. Do you want to practice in future? Do you want exposure across multiple fields? What are your priorities? So I would just say weigh all of those options. For example, one thing I would say is, and I'm sure Samay also would agree that firms like, let's say, a management consulting firm, for example, when they shortlist CVs, I think they will prioritize if you have a big four articleship or an industrial training. But at the same time, if you want to go into industry or if you want to start your own practice, then definitely the small mid-size exposure, in the sense the leadership that Samay spoke about, the exposure, the network, all of those things will matter. So I think you will have to decide for yourself what is the particular archetype that you are fitting into. Here, over here, we as speakers will just share our experience, and you have to take a call on what is best for you. But that is super helpful, Samay. Thanks a lot for your views. And it is interesting to know that despite having Big Four, Big Six offers, you chose to go for a non-Big Four, Big Six firm. So, but super helpful and kudos. Thanks a lot once again, Samay, for taking out the time. Quickly moving on to our next speaker, Sachin, who I'll quickly introduce as well. So, Sachin, hi, Sachin has done his articleship from BDO here in Ahmedabad. And I think he's done his articleship in Stat Audit, right? If I'm not wrong, Sachin.
Yeah.
Over to you, Sachin,
Yes.
on sharing your experience about Big Six apart from Big Four, somewhere in between the mid-sized firms and Big Four. How do you think that is helped? How different is the experience versus Big Four? And do you think GT, BDO, etc. are suggestible in articleship? Based on your experience, of course.
Yeah. Hi, Divesh. Thank you so much, and congratulations to all of the candidates here for clearing the C-Inter. Now, directly coming on to the question, I think majority of my part has been already been covered by Aarshi, because the content is more or less very much similar. One thing I would like to add on, like the difference between the GT video and the Big Four. I don't think there is a much difference if you are considering to focus only on audit perspective and want to go to the corporate finance and like industry type roles in the future and don't want to practice. Then it is the best option to go for the GTBD also along with the Big Four. So I don't think there is much difference in the documentation part, in the like conventions which usually are being followed by the audit firms. So basically, whatever you read in the audit, the documentation part, the standards on auditing, what says, we all follow all those things. Uh, you would have read the assembly part, that is, we have to assemble our files within 60 days of the audit engagement. That is also followed in the video. There is a separate software about that. Usually, in which we record our files, we record our work papers, we record our whatever information we have got from the client. So that is, I think, approximately similar to the Big Four. Yes, I would say Big Four do have some extra tools, some extra procedures which video or GT would not follow. Like they would have the separate tools for the extraction part, sample extraction part, and much more like that. So I would say, but going to video will give you an experience very similar to the Big Four. However, it would be very subjective depending upon your basically the client and the team, which client you are being offered to, and which in which team you are being allotted to. So basically, I have got fortunately, I have got the listed client in my audit experience, and it was an initial audit engagement too. So basically, giving an overview of my whole articleship period of 1 year, I was allotted a listed client with initial audit engagement. That is, our video was doing the audit of that client for the first time. So that gives me something an edge, because whenever you are doing an audit for a client for the first time, you would do understand his business, and you will have to perform all the procedures that are being required. So basically, there are two types of audit engagements: initial audit engagements and recurring engagements. So if you get a recurring engagement, then it means the work papers are already being prepared, the process walkthrough has already been done, that what the business looks like. You just have to read and understand. So on the contrary, in the initial audit engagement, you will understand directly from the client. So that gives a different perspective, that gives a different knowledge to you. So it totally depends upon what type of engagement, what type of client you are being allotted to. Secondly, the team plays a key role: your manager, your seniors, your senior articles, your director, which you are ultimately referring to. Because in Big Four video GT, there is much hierarchy, and you have to follow that obviously, because there is a proper system in that for reporting purposes. So that is required in video GT also, and it will depend how your 1 year or 2 year of articleship will go, like on majority on the client you allotted and the team you got. So then I'll go with, yeah, for choosing the Big Four versus a mid-sized firm, definitely have been covered by the earlier speakers. If you want to go into the practice, then you can consider 1 year of articleship in Big Four and then moving on to small size, mid-sized firm, or you can directly go with the mid-size. But if you want to build your career in a like an industry or in a specific domain, then you should go for Big Four or BD or GT. Then, like overview about the work, you will get an understanding about the business. Then you will prepare the analytical review part, analytical procedures you will perform regarding. You will prepare the work papers for every line item of the financial statement area. There will be two types. Like one is stat audit and second is limited review. So for listed clients, you will perform limited review also at in the month each after quarter end. So definitely, the work pressure I would talk about, it is majorly if you are allotted to the listed client, then you will have to perform the limited review, and the month after the quarter end would be so much hectic, and every time it would be a lot hectic and all. So that you will be communicated in your interview also, that these months and this proper audit time would be hectic, and you will need to give time to the office for sure, managing your C final studies. So then moving ahead, like in video GT and Big Four, the documentation part is very much good. Whatever you learn in inter audit as well as the final audit, even that is followed in properly in the documentation part. Whatever you do, you have to document. Whatever the information you are taking from the client, you have to document. Whatever the information you are preparing, you would also need to document that. So every documentation part you will be cleared about. You will be it will be relatable that what you have studied is actually followed in the industry. So that is a very big plus point in Big Four and Video GT. Plus, of course, the tag of Big Four and Video GT is very much crucial for your financial career ahead. Now, the about the work culture, it would be a lot dependent upon your team as well. How much supportive is your manager is, how much supportive your seniors are. So it would be dependent upon that. Plus, the studies with articleship. Yeah, I will suggest. you should aim for the rank in CA finals, because it helps a lot definitely. For that, you as early as you start your CA final prep, it would be very much helpful. So I would not say just after joining RTLCF you have to start and you will have to rigorously work for the CA final preparation. But I would suggest in 2 3 months you at least start with one subject. Whenever you get time, try to be consistent, and yeah, that's how you should manage the CA final studies. And along with the CFA, if you want to build your career in finance, you want to go ahead with the finance as an option for further 8 to 10 years, 5 to 10, 8 to 10 years, then go for CFA. Inquire about the same, what helps it does take, and what type of subjects in it, how it will help your career. Then only go to CFA. So this was all from my side.
Thanks a lot,
Anything? Yeah,
Sachin. Sachin, I think, has gone through all the queries in detail and he's addressed all of those one by one. So thanks a
yeah,
lot, Sachin,
yeah.
for the detailed answer. And guys, I hope you all are now clear on Big Four versus a small mid-sized firm versus a GT or a BDO. And I hope that lets you, gives you some guidance and insights on how do you decide. So thanks a lot, Sachin. We'll move to our next question and
Thank you.
our next speaker as well. Thank you so much, Sachin, for taking all the time this early in the morning as well. And once again, by the way, guys, Sachin has secured an All India rank in CA final May 26th. So heartiest congratulations to you as well, Sachin. I
Thank
know
you.
I've personally
Thank you so much.
congratulated you, but once again at this forum. So,
Thank you.
guys, now moving to our next question, which I think is a super important question, which is which domain to choose. And I know a lot of you want to hear about valuations, but we'll come to valuations in a little bit. Let us start with the most hot favorite in general. One of the domains which most people pursue their articleship in, which is statutory audit. So, Keertana is our next speaker, and Keertana did her articleship from Grant Thornton in Chennai. So, over to you, Keertana, to talk to you all about stat audit and also how do you prepare for an interview within stat audit, etc. Over to you, Keertana. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the introduction, Divesh. So first of all, congratulations to all of you on clearing CA Inter and coming to CA final. So talking about my articleship, I did from GT in statutory audit domain in Chennai location. So first, I'll just probably explain what kind of work that you all will be exposed to when you take statutory audit as a domain. So number one being you will get to do statutory audits. Second one is limited reviews, as Sachin also mentioned, and number three is tax audit. Tax audit basically lasts for a month or so. So I wouldn't call it a major work, but it is still something that you get to do. Talking about my exposure, I was not exposed to stuff like direct and indirect tax at all. So if that is something you want exposure about, I would not recommend you to go for statutory audit at all, because it is purely analytical side and audit rather than you getting tax exposure. And basically how the structure works is that you will be plotted into a client, and you will first try to understand the industry that the client is functioning in, and what are the metrics that actually matters in the industry, and how the industry structure is, and how the entity functions, and basic stuff like that. And then you move on to analyzing what is the risk in the client, what kind of risks you foresee in a client of this size and structure. And then you go ahead with doing your control testing. Control testing is basically you analyze all the controls that is there in the entity regarding to internal financial controls, and you test each of the controls. It can be like IT controls or manual controls, etc. There might be a cross-functional, working across IT teams as well. So that is one thing. And the next is analytical procedures. So you basically get the financial statements from the client, and you actually do the number crunching part, and you actually work on it. And there is also a lot of documentation involved, as Aarshi and Sachin also pointed out, because there is a proper structure that we follow in Big Four or Big Six. There is a proper methodology that you have to follow, and every step of the way, whatever you do has to be documented properly. So that is one major thing. And one positive thing about documentation is that you get to directly apply whatever accounting standards and auditing standards that you've already studied in Inter, and that you're going to study in CA final, like Ind AS, etc. So you have to document everything like very clearly, so that it will be useful for the upcoming engagements as well. And one negative thing about documentation that I would say that it gets pretty boring after a certain point. Maybe in first year you would enjoy doing documentation, because you get to write down things whatever you did, and it helps you retain stuff a lot better. But then coming to the second and third point, there's no third year from now, yeah, but coming to the second year, you tend to get bored with a lot of documentation stuff, because you will have a lot of workload on the number crunching part as well. So you won't get to allocate much time towards documentation, but you still have to do it. So that is one downside of documentation. And as Sachin was also mentioning, we do have certain tools and like sampling tools, etc., that we have to use, or we get to use to practically see how sampling works, etc. So that is, I think, common across Big Four as well as GT video. And mainly the role would be client facing. Like whatever client that you're plotted into, you get to sit with the client, not just one department but every single department, and you get to understand how the process flow works, who initiates the transaction, like who processes it, and what kind of processing happens. And you tend to get a better view of the commercial or the business understanding. So that is one good part, because whatever sector that you are going to venture into in the future, having a good business and commercial understanding actually comes in handy. Even in case of your interview prep, post CA final, or like any kind of industry that you go, basically you will have an idea as to how to start, understanding an industry from scratch. Like where do you start? You kind of get that insight when you do statutory audits, because in every client which has like IFC testing, you tend to sit with the client and understand the process from start to end. So that kind of gives you a business perspective, if I can put it that way. And second thing is that when you're a first year trainee, you get to work on a lot of assignments, because you will not be able to handle assignments on your own, but you will be assisting your seniors in a lot of like work. I know vouching is some term you that you're very familiar of, but then it's just not vouching, guys. You also get to do a lot of business understanding stuff. There is always opportunity in statutory audit, but it all depends upon your intent to grab that opportunity and you going and asking for opportunities. That is when you can uh, excuse me, that is when you can capitalize on your learning, is what I was trying to say. And in the second year, I think from articleship being reduced to 2 years, I think a lot of managers and seniors have started allocating more work to even people who are in the tier 1 or the first year articleship category. So in that way, I think nowadays you get to do a lot of number crunching part in the first year as well. So if you're probably joining in statutory audit or even in any other domains for that matter, try to capitalize on whatever opportunities that you get. Try to ask for sectoral exposure. Let's say if you're interested in a fintech or a financial services industry, just go and ask for it. I want to get an understanding of this client. Probably there will be some client which you're not aware about yet, but you can still go and ask for it so that you will get that exposure. So that is one thing that I wanted to mention. And second thing is, as Aarshi was mentioning, you get to interact with a lot of partners and even CXOs of the clients, etc. That is a very big opportunity at this age. Like even without any prior work experience, you getting to do all of this is one of the upsides of working at a Big Four or a Big Six is what I was trying to say. And second asked question was like what are the skills that we have to have to get a Big Four or a Big Six articleship in start audit, and how the interview process works, and how do we prepare our resumes. So first, resumes, I think most of it is screened through ATS nowadays. So you can just go and go on Google, and there's a lot of ATS friendly resumes that is available. So you can just take one of them, like a professional looking one, and we all have AI, so like make the best use of it. And make sure that you have the keywords that they are looking for, and you can optimize your resume using AI easily. So I think that was about resume. And about interview, you will need to know about accounting standards and auditing standards in detail. They will drill you on all the accounting, like major accounting standards like construction contracts, revenue recognition, etc. So you have to know them in and out. And also regarding leases, so that is also a major standard that you have to cover. Basically, they will not be asking you all the standards, but they might pick a certain standard and ask you like practical case study based questions. Probably it depends on what client the manager or the partner who's taking your interview is working in. They might pull out a situation that they're currently facing and they can pose you that question. So just be prepared on practical case studies from your accounting standards. And talking about auditing standards, you need to know about what assertions are, and why each assertion, and how do you why each assertion is important in its own way, and how do you go about auditing each assertion. They do know that you don't have a practical exposure, but when they give you a practical scenario, you need to be able to apply your analytical thinking and tell them how would you approach that scenario. So that would be enough, I guess. And then about exit opportunities from I think audit is a field where you have a lot of exit opportunities. I think you can get into FP&A or financial due diligence, or even a transaction advisory, or something like financial reporting services, consulting, etc. So there are a lot of exit opportunities, and having a Big Four or Big Six on your resume does land well in case of interviews and shortlistings as well. So that was one thing. And coming to the most known thing about long working hours, yes, definitely it is long. And I'm not sure about all others, but in the firm that I did my articleship in, we had seasons like throughout the year. I think probably 15 days in December is when we got a little bit of a lean season, I would say. But Jan through November, all of the seasons were very tight, and we had to put in like 12 to 14 hours per day. So that kind of takes away the amount of time that you have for your CA final preparation. But given that now the articleship has been reduced to 2 years, and you kind of have a lot of time for preparation for CA final, probably 8 to 9 months also, like we are getting. So in that case, if you want to capitalize on more opportunities, I would still say prioritize your articleship and try to learn as much as you can. And if you feel like you have a lot of time to prepare post articleship, you can use that as well. So I would try to say capitalize on all the, not most of it, all the opportunities that you get, because it is really good to have a lot of leadership things, or like client interaction stuff, etc. on your resume. It does really land well in your future. And I do have 3 to 4 suggestions that if you're joining Start Audit or any other domain, that you can implement. Number one being, ask for sectoral exposure. If you're interested in a particular sector or a particular client, and you know that your firm has a client of that sort, you can go ahead and ask for it. Trust me, it will be worth it in your future, or on your career path. It will end up being worth it, or it might even land you in your dream job. So don't hesitate to ask for that. And second one is, document all of your steps. If you're doing something major in your articleship, you won't remember exactly what you did, or what was the recognition that you got, what kind of a turnaround or what kind of a change you made. Note it down along with the quantification of the achievement. So it kind of helps you at a later point of time in preparing your resumes after CA final and for your job, etc. It does really help. And one more thing about Big Four or Big Six is that you tend to get a lot of spot awards, or internally, I mean, an internal recognition from the firm for your, leadership, or like taking initiative, client satisfaction, client feedback, etc. They do have a lot of criteria under which they give you awards based on your performance. So keep working towards them, and they do have a big impact on your resume as well. So this was all I had, Divesh. Hope this helped.
No, super helpful, Keertana. All perspectives definitely help. I think, and then they'll aid to, guys, like I said, every article in, across, even in the same firm, same domain, a different team might have had a different experience basis how his team members have been, basis how his client has been. So I think there will be diverse experience, and hence, this is the reason our panel is so big, so that we can hear from so many people and understand how their experiences have differed. But thanks a ton, Keertana, for sharing your valuable experience. That's really helped.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kavya. Kavya, who is the new content creator in town again, like I said. Kavya did his articleship in corporate and international tax. And over to you, Kavya, to spill the beans and demystify, if I was to say. I think tax is one of those domains which is relatively less preferred in articleship, but I myself had done articleship in tax, and I do believe there are genuine benefits of doing articleship in tax. Not to say audit isn't good. Definitely, audit has much more benefits in some shape or form. But maybe, Kavya, if you could shed some light on what are the pros and cons of pursuing articleship in tax, and who should.
Yeah, sure, Divesh.
Over to
So
you.
first of all, RTS, congratulations to all those who cleared. I knew this is a great milestone we have achieved, and welcome to the CA finalist chat. So basically, first of all, I will be covering about why I choose tax over start audit. So to be honest, I really loved accounting during my intermediate and the foundation days as well. But when I studied taxation intermediate, it is a subject which really fascinated me a lot. And to be honest, analyzing the different provisions and then connecting it throughout, like your maybe some particular transaction, maybe having implications in your other sources, maybe your gift, or for someone it is your gift, or for someone it may be you're having a capital gain implication. So that is something that really attracted me towards a tax domain, like analyzing a transaction from multiple perspectives. And the second thing which I why I choose tax over start audit is I have heard a lot from my seniors that during the peak season, obviously, so usme start audit mein there used to be a huge workload, and the work like your working hours used to get अनकाउंटेबल उसमें नहीं पता चलता था कितनी देर तक आप काम करोगे एंड आई एम समवन हु वांटेड टू बी इन अ मोर सिस्टमैटिक like I want to do articleship in a more systematic manner where my work hours use I expected that my work hours should be somewhat consistent over my articleship tenure. So that is the second reason why I chose articleship in BT over like a start audit. And like now coming to the CV part, I'll covering from the CV to till the exit opportunities in the like the sequence. So for CV, since most of you are applying for the articleship, and there will be two categories of like audience. First one who are from colleges, and the second one who are straight out of wealth, like I was. So if you are straight out of wealth, nobody is really expecting you should be right that you will be writing something really extraordinary in CVs. You just need to prepare a really professional, clean looking CV, wherein you should highlight your academic qualifications, and most importantly, just one second, your academic qualifications and what all you have studied intermediate. And if you have like some practical exposure, like working in your father's business or something, then you can always mention, or maybe your school accolades, वगैरह. Don't mention something like you have won an essay competition in your class second. That is not really going to count. But to be honest, CV में आपको you don't have to mention really really extraordinary things and don't have to be worried about it. For those who have done their article, मतलब those who have joined college, yes, your interviewers really hope कि आपके पास कुछ extra experience हो. But even if you are not having something, maybe your society or your like internship experience, you can write if you have anything. Otherwise, it is also fine. Now coming to the interview prep. For DT, you just have to go through your intermediate syllabus. They ask you based on what you have studied out in intermediate and what really fascinated you to choose articleship in DT. And some interviews also ask if there is any new provision, new sections, like or maybe something which is newly introduced in the Finance Act or something. And like in my interview also, they asked me if there is any new section at that time. 194R and 194S came the new section. Right now, like it's 194T, which is your TDS for like a partner, interest to partners and remuneration and everything. So you should be thorough with that. If there is any new section of TDS or maybe something new related to compliance or something new in Finance Act, maybe some section have been amended or maybe have been withdrawn. So that is what you will need to prepare for the interviews. This is for technical round. For partner round, it is usually more kind of a conversation thing wherein the partner wants to know you, what you are, and whether you will be able to handle the pressure. Now coming to the Big Four versus your Big Six and the mid-size firm. So to be honest, when we coming to Big Four, even the domain DT gets divided into usually three different subdomains, which is your corporate international tax, the M&A tax, and the transfer pricing. एंड टू बी ऑनेस्ट लाइक अ बिग फोर्स, ये इन तीनों सब डोमेन्स के बीच में जो क्लासिफिकेशन है वो बहुत अच्छे से मेंटेन करके रखता है. इफ यू आर गोइंग इनटू कॉर्पोरेट इंटरनेशनल टैक्स, देन इट इज वेरी लेस लाइकली दैट यू विल बी गेटिंग एनी वर्क इन टीपी डोमेन और मे बी द एमएनए टैक्स. अगर कोई आपके क्लाइंट से रिलेटेड सेम डोमेन में काम आता भी है, देन यू विल हैव टू कोऑर्डिनेट विद द टीम फ्रॉम दैट सब डोमेन लाइक योर एमएनए टैक्स और मे बी योर टीपी, and then you will have to coordinate with them for that particular part of the assignment. So majority of time you will be doing like in Big Four, you will be doing assignment related to, if you are going to like a corporate international taxation, you will be doing assignments for majorly of the domestic and international corporate tax only. You will not be like going into the deal advisory or the M&A tax part or the TP part. And second thing is, when you go into Big Four, it is highly likely that you will be getting exposure into only one or two clients or maybe one or two industries. Like for me, it was a media client, media and production house. And my whole 2 year of articulation went into just one client. Well, it was a group, media group. So that's what it is. And when it comes to GT video, like your other two firms from the Big Six, usme I've seen that even if you are getting into a CIT domain, then it is likely probable that you will be getting some work exposure in TP or maybe the M&A as well, and sometimes into the advisory part also. Now coming to what I did in the corporate international tax. So there are three parts in the CIT domain which you will work. First one is the compliance, second is your litigation, and third part is your advisory. So compliance starts with your TDS return filing till the replying to assessment notices as well. And if some additions gets done in the assessment order, then you will like you are taking a particular stand from the tax perspective, and the tax department taking a different stand, then you will move on to litigation. So this is more of a compliance part जो आपका क्या कहते हैं notices से related रहता है. उसके बाद when you move on to litigation part, in intermediate, when we have studied the section from a broader perspective, while when moving to litigation, we study those sections only from a very different point of view, analyzing so many case laws, going into the intricacies of each section, trying to point our point of view in a legitimate manner and making sense at like every time कि जो भी हमने किया है, like what the client has done, it is totally legitimate, and this is ideal treatment which should be done. So this is what we do in the litigation part. And now coming to advisory. सो एडवाइजरी में डिफरेंट डिफरेंट हमारे पास ट्रांजैक्शन से रिलेटेड एडवाइजरी आती है. जो भी कंपनी लाइक कोई न्यू बिजनेस सेटअप कर रही है, दे ऑलवेज वांट टू नो द टैक्स एंगल बिहाइंड सेटिंग अप द न्यू थिंग, न्यू अंडरटेकिंग अ न्यू ट्रांजैक्शन और मे बी एंटरिंग इनटू अ न्यू एग्रीमेंट. सो दिस इज अबाउट योर एडवाइजरी असाइनमेंट्स. एंड वन थिंग which happens a lot in advisory. Even if you are moving into even if you are working in a single industry, then also advisory may be related to anything. Like if your client, maybe your client is in like a single industry, but he will be dealing with multiple vendors or maybe multiple people from different industries. Maybe your like a capital intensive industry, or maybe your like your satellite industry वगैरह internet broadcasting वगैरह इन सब चीजों से deal करते हैं, तो you will be like analyzing arrangements and the agreements from different perspective, and you will be going through each transaction in a very detailed manner. Now day to day working, so I got into taxation thinking about कि जो मेरा work hours होंगे वो somewhat consistent रहेंगे during the like entire 2 years, but that is not the case. Even जो मेरे work hours थे वो peak season में काफी ज्यादा extend होते थे, and even the lean period वो कभी आया नहीं, to be honest 2 years में. It really depends कि आपका डे टू डे वर्क लाइफ कैसी होगी, वो आपकी टीम पे एंड द काइंड ऑफ क्लाइंट्स यू आर गोइंग टू हैंडल उस पर डिपेंड करती है. इफ यू आर हैविंग अ लाइक रियली गुड क्लाइंट्स एंड like for me, मेरे clients का have a it was a single industry, but they were having a huge litigation and like your history. So even when it was not considered to be a like your peak season of DT, not the November or the October part, then also during the entire year we used to be engaged so much in the advisory or the litigation part that lean period never really came for us. So that is the thing. And now coming to how to apply. So how to apply in DT or maybe for any other big four or any other big system for that matter. For most of the big fours, they usually post on LinkedIn, or and if you have got a rank, then mostly the HRs comment on your post if you have like posted your marksheet on the LinkedIn. And somewhere they also reach out to your DMs. उसके अलावा कुछ फॉर्म्स आपकी जो मिड साइज फॉर्म्स होती है फॉर्म्स भी सर्कुलेट करती है, देयर यू कैन लाइक पुट ऑन योर सीवी एंड एवरीथिंग, एंड उसके थ्रू आपके लाइक इंटरव्यूज वगैरह शेड्यूल होते हैं. जस्ट मेक श्योर दैट यू अप्लाई टू एज मेनी वैकेंसीज एज पॉसिबल, क्योंकि इवन इफ यू वांट टू गो इनटू बीटी बट यू नेवर नो लाइक आपको उसमें अपॉर्चुनिटी रियली मिलेगी या नहीं मिलेगी. And to address about the exit opportunities after DT, to be honest, it doesn't really matter which like कौन से domain में आप articleship कर रहे हो. Yes, if you want to go into like IB domain after your after getting qualified, then definitely doing an articleship in valuation and M&A tax makes much more sense than doing an articleship in DT. But maybe अगर आपके articleship DT से होगी, you will face a little difficulty. But if you prepare well for after qualification कि मुझे like IB में जाना है, then you can always prepare for a role. Nobody like doing articleship in a particular domain never really cancels on opportunities as such. So you can like always apply to all the opportunities which you are getting at right now and choose the best of the opportunities which like you can make it. So I guess I have broadly covered almost all the things.
Thanks a lot, Kavya. I think two things. One
Yeah.
is, guys, I had also pursued my articleship in tax, so I absolutely agree with whatever Kavya said. I think the one additional benefit that I personally felt, I was someone who used to like to, be a part of all of these litigations, analyze, find the precedents, make those letters, present a case. I used to really love researching, debating, drafting. So if you are someone who loves all of these aspects, if I have to, give a random analogy, I think articleship in tax is a lot more into MS Word because you keep making a lot of appeals, you keep drafting a lot of letters to the assessing officers, etc. You keep writing a lot of advisory documents versus articleship in audit is a lot of Excel. So if I was to give that analogy, but I think articleship in tax taught a lot, and especially one more thing, it helped in the CF and DT subject also a lot. From
Yes.
assessment procedure perspective, return filing, all of those things came to the tip of your tongue. I mean, you didn't have to really prepare for it because you had done your articleship in that field. That is one thing that I felt was good about doing articleship in tax. And second thing is, Kavya bhai अपना YouTube or Instagram बता दो लोगों को so that they can follow you. You can put it on the chat,
Well,
and
yeah,
guys, you can follow Kavya
yeah,
for
I'll
his
put
safe
on.
and journey.
Just one more thing I would like to add on. Yeah. So basically टैक्स के क्या होते हैं थोड़े असाइनमेंट्स एज कम्पेयर टू स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट जो कि बहुत लंबे चलते हैं, तो टैक्स के असाइनमेंट आपके रिलेटिवली कंपैरेटिवली बहुत स्मॉल होते हैं. सो यू गेट टू हैंडल अ कंप्लीट असाइनमेंट फ्रॉम स्टार्ट टू एंड. उसके बाद ऑब्वियसली आपके रिव्यूज वगैरह होंगे, बट getting to do a complete assignment from start to end really develops a really good confidence, and you will be researching a lot in tax. It's not different before moving on to the tax part, you need to understand the transaction first कि उसमें क्या क्या implications आ रही है, what are the parties, what these like business industries in which these operate, क्या उसके ऊपर compliance आती है tax से related. So that is something which like really develops you in terms of research skills and like your communication skills as well, since you will be like directly communicating, discussing these your advisories or whatever your research findings with the managers and the partners.
No, absolutely. I think a lot more analytical. I wouldn't say analytical is not the right word, but I think a lot more research heavy.
Research, yeah.
Definitely. No, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Kavya. I think we'll go with transfer pricing next. So, Shivansh, over to you. Just once again, I'll put you in the spotlight. How do I put it? Yes, you are in the spotlight. Over to you, Shivansh.
Yeah, so first of all, congratulations to everyone who cleared CA intermediate and welcome to CA finalist club. And like transfer pricing, I think Kavya covered majority of the points from taxation perspective, from CV building, how to apply. So I would just leave that. And the term transfer pricing, I think most of the CA intermediate students who would be joining doesn't even know what transfer pricing is. So basically, in simple words, transfer pricing is transaction between two related parties. Anything, everything that happens between these two related parties will form scope of your work when you do transfer pricing. So when transfer pricing comes, it will be domestic transfer pricing or either international transfer pricing. And usually when you have companies having related parties, so it will be a large group. So by default, you would be working on large set of clients, and there would be no small clients of 100, 200 crores. You will be working on lakhs, clients having lakhs of crores of turnovers. So that is for sure. Then one thing about transfer pricing is you should only get into transfer pricing if you are only able to get into big four, and that too in EY, PwC, Deloitte, or Grant Thornton. Otherwise, I won't recommend transfer pricing anyone to join. Considering the last set of clients, they usually prefer these firms for their getting their work done. So speaking about transfer pricing, like there would be three verticals in it: advisory, assessment, litigation, and compliance. Advisory and assessment litigation will be the best area to work upon, and then coming to compliance, that is the routine work that forms base of everything. So for in the work scenario, if you see, so advisory work will be something like company would just come with a statement, like they go to management consulting firm, I want to do this transaction, just help us pricing it. This XYZ company is sitting outside India or in India, and this is our related party. Now we are the one who will help them structuring the entire transaction. What should be the pricing? What should be the value chain? What should where the actual value lies? So basically, the work would be analytical thinking, research heavy, and as mentioned about the corporate and international taxation, you would be reading taxation, economics, and then each and everything like costing from a very deeper lens. Like whenever we do any assignment, so the assignment are short, like the assignment have a very short duration. They don't last more than 2 months, 1 month, 3 months, 15 days, or something. But the exposure you get from end to end, like from finalizing and pitching client to actually completing the deliverable, is the set of skill set that we acquire. And usually when you get into transfer pricing, people will say like it's a wrong decision to get into. When I joined, my seniors even told that you got a rank and like you are doing transfer pricing, you would be a jobless. They mentioned me such thing that you would be jobless after CA. And trust me, like after clearing CA, when I set into campus, I got highest campus placement, highest package at the campus placement, and I converted almost 8 out of 10 interviews which I gave. So that's not the whole point where it lies. After qualification, you can switch to any domain. Yes, if you are very sure that you want to get into investment banking, valuation side, or market equity side, then I would suggest don't come to this profile. And another aspect that no one speak about is the foreign opportunities. If you want to explore foreign opportunities, transfer pricing is the domain. You can explore. You can easily switch to Dubai, Ireland, or any other country, because transfer pricing is not restrained to India. It's a global tax. Like, and the value of stakes involved in this in transfer pricing is really high. Like anyone who wonders why a company had always had a holding company in Mauritius, Netherlands, or a tax haven country, is something that transfer pricing folks advises. So from that perspective, it's too good. Work-life balance, I think everyone say transfer pricing is TP, time pass, but it's not that. Like you would be really working for 12 months entire at a same pace. We usually tell that in season time it's a lame period, because we can say to client that it's a season time and we have to work on compliances. Otherwise entire year you will get advices, and advices is, trust me, it's not the thing like you are just doing data crunching and all. You are actually structuring the transaction from end to end. You would be advising the CEO, CFOs of the company how the transaction should happen, what should be the pricing, and you have to own the litigation and assessment, even the litigation risk that would come to client. So it's not just simply advising and then just getting out of the work. And then like if you want to get into like your approach in transfer pricing should be a bit different. So when you join as an article, even a qualified chartered accountant and an article is at the same page in transfer profile like transfer pricing, because in finals we have studied transfer pricing, but that is very broad lens, and that is not something that is actual is transfer pricing is. So when you join from day one, your approach should be that I don't know less than a qualified chartered accountant in this domain. So you will definitely get starting kind of work in that. If you are ready to go that extra mile, the kind of exposure, the kind of clients you will get, and the experience would be varied. Like advisory would be different. every advisory would be different. And in assessment litigation, if you get to work on international cases like mutual agreement procedure or advanced pricing agreement, I think one advanced pricing agreement or one mutual agreement procedure would be almost equivalent to your hundreds of other assignment. It lasts for almost a couple of years or so, but you would be dealing with US counterparties of tax authorities. You would be dealing with the CBDT directors of CBDT who deal with international who actually drafted DTAAs. And in the senior legal counsel like JD Mistry sir, Percy Pardiwala, like the most renowned counsel of India. So you would be directly dealing with, because the set of clients that you would be handling would be largest conglomerates in India, and they would be just and wherever litigation comes, client get feared. Like there would be no like very little level of junior interaction. In each and every call, there would be senior stakeholders fighting with each other, and like the kind of exposure that you will get would be like anything. You can't compare with the exposure you can get in this foreign opportunities. Anyways, it will be open. Then if you are like, who should not choose this domain? If you are very clear that I want to go into IB, PEVC or a valuation or transaction side, I won't suggest anyone to come here. If you want to travel a lot during the articleship or something like to get on a client place and then work, or to like, so then don't come into this domain. And if someone has a attitude like ki jo mila wo kar lenge, so then also I think this domain won't treat you right, because if you are with this mindset, if you then you will be only doing some mundane task, and you would be only doing some back-end research kind of work. You will never get into a client-facing role. Then if exit opportunities, if you get a rank, I think entire C is open for you, because obviously you would be having a Big Four time. If you don't get don't get any rank in finals, then also trust me, first attempt CA can get into, or even a chartered accountant can switch to any profile. Yes, you would have to start early. Like if someone is starting at 15 lakhs, you would have to start with 12 lakhs. That would be the only difference. That would be to switch profiles, and that works with every domain. So that's not if you have worked in audit, so you can't switch to transfer pricing, or you have worked in transfer pricing, you can't go into M&A tax. You can easily switch after qualification. But the firm will like get into transfer pricing only if you get into big three or big four, maybe like only EY, Deloitte, and PwC. KPMG also I won't suggest, considering my friend couple of folks who worked there, their transfer price, particular transfer pricing vertical of their profile. Then location matters a lot. You should only choose when you get Mumbai, Bangalore, or Delhi, because the entire clientele base, the headquarters. So usually Big Four works with a structure. If the client is headquartered in Mumbai, then Mumbai team will only handle it. Other team can't even go to the client and even can't do the back-end work of that client. So that thing will come. So only prefer metros. And then if some like hours would be predictable, yeah, the hours would be long but predictable. Like if you are going at 10 or 11 o'clock, and you would be logging off, if you're at late sitting, you will be logging off at 11, 12 or something. Particularly assignment wise, I think it's a lot more based on advisories and assessment litigation. As like Kavya spoke about assessment litigation, we study in depth each and every article of DTAA taxation perspective. And yeah, so from my side, like I worked in transfer pricing, had different opinion at initial when I came to job. So basically I'm working in management consulting. So like you can easily transform. Even I have seen Fox, my few of my friends working in BCG in management consulting domain. I am working in Alvarez and Marshall as management consulting domain. So from their domain switch you can do, and what thing you will develop is your ownership of work. From day 2 or day 3 itself, you will be owning the piece of work you are doing, and you will not be in the back end. You will be directly added to the calls and asked to give your inputs as well. So it will, yes, obviously it will depend upon team you are working, but that opportunity you will get to directly deal with tax manager, tax heads, legal heads of this. And if you are the someone who loves to do a lot of research, read case laws, learn about international tax, then I think transfer pricing is the profile for you. I think this from my side, Divesh. Yeah.
No, super helpful, Shivansh. And I think Kavya has also mentioned something in the chat box. But without going into that, I think one more additional small thing to add from my side, given I did my articleship in the broad tax domain myself. Can you switch profiles after articleship? A definite yes, guys, and which is why don't be adamant on going into an audit or a tax or evaluations. Do whatever you feel like doing at this point, but don't worry, you will be able to switch later on. People also understand at this point you would not know what a transfer pricing or an audit is. Even if you take a choice, it is possible to make a switch. Having said that, just one caveat is there will be 2 out of, or maybe 5 out of 100 jobs which will prefer people of a particular profile. For example, when I sat for campus, ITC was one of the folks, to be there in the campus, and ITC did not shortlist me, despite me having a double rank in inter and final Big Four articleship, etc. Because ITC had this specific criteria of wanting people from audit articleship background. So कुछ companies का ये होगा, and maybe rightly so because their work probably demands that you cannot do about. But उस चक्कर में आप अभी के choice को overthink मत करो. Do what you feel like going for at this point, or at least the inclination that you would have at this point, and you should enjoy those 2 years of your articleship rather than thinking about बाद में switch मिलेगा नहीं मिलेगा, वो मिल जाएगा, don't worry about it. Super. Thanks a lot, Shivan. Super helpful. Once again, thanks for taking out the time on a Sunday morning. And over to you, Ishita. Now, Ishita has done her articleship from Indirect Tax, one of the very few people to do so. Ishita, ये भी बताओ यार, IDT में ज़्यादा लोग articleship क्यों नहीं करते? Maybe share some thoughts as well. Maybe demystify, the myths around IDT articleship. Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Divesh. And first of all, heartiest congratulations to all this year inter-qualified. So first, I'll begin with how I ended up being in indirect tax. So from the starting, while I was preparing for my CA inter, one subject which I was particularly attached towards, it was law. So I loved reading the law, interpreting the law. And for me, what I loved was like interpreting the law and then applying it practically on my own and reading how the transaction is structured. So that's why I was particularly drawn towards law. And while I gained some experiences of my senior as well, which they got from stat audit. So that was something which I particularly did not like that much. And so that's why I chose tax. And if I compare indirect tax versus direct tax, so direct tax is a pretty old law, although new tax has been introduced, but it is pretty much similar as old as well. And indirect tax is something which is very new, and it is also not very well drafted. As you can see, there are so many notification circulars which come up at like in every week we can see every notification or circular is coming up. And there is one myth regarding indirect tax. Whenever a person thinks indirect tax, it's all about compliance, GSTR 1, 3B, 4, 7. But my articleship experience was completely different. Initially 1 or 2 months, what I did was compliance. Then there was a complete switch towards litigation and advisory. So now I'll break down indirect tax first. So indirect tax can be bifurcated in customs and GST. Customs is pretty much procedural task, filing of the necessary bill of entries, HSN classification and all. So my experience was in GST. So GST can now be further subdivided into compliance, litigation, advisory. And I was lucky to have been worked in all three. What I believe is initially a person who wants to pursue IDT, GST, basically, they should gain some insights how compliance is managed, how R1, 3B, what are the tables where the data flows, because that is what will be the base for the litigation. Because major of my litigations like show cause notices, orders, appeal, they all revolve around the discrepancies between returns. And although there are many more litigation relating to like the interpretation of law, why a particular ITC has been taken, but majorly it's about this. So initially a person who is wanting to enter into GST, they should gain insights how compliance, how returns are managed. Then they can switch to litigation. They can see themselves preparing replies to show cause notices, drafting appeals and all. And I see that having pursued my articleship from EY, I was trained under a lawyer. So my seniors, they particularly taught me what is the importance of even a comma, the formatting, how the alignment needs to be done. So this was something which I wanted from the very start, and I was lucky to have a senior like that. Now coming from litigation to advisory, I was lucky to handle some of the advisory assignments as well. Under advisory, we used to cover like analyzing the business model of a client, understanding each and every transaction from the point of view of GST, and also advisory involved restructuring like the business model so that it can result in tax savings, particularly in the field of GST. And regarding the exit options in GST, I'll say that if you get a rank, so of course there is no restriction in switching the domains and you can enter any field. And in particularly you can pursue a career in GST further also, since it's a recent law, new law, so there are many discrepancies open. So of course you can start your own practice as well. You can pursue your career further in a big four, and also you can pursue your career in a law firm because they're happy to hire CAs as well, since they come with a knowledge of both numbers as well as law. And this was some of my experience about articleship at EY.
Super helpful, guys. I think one additional takeaway, I would say, point of validation, Ishita, is I think it is super important to have a good senior and a good team. And guys, ये कहीं ना कहीं आप validate नहीं कर पाओगे before joining the firm, but I would just say before you join, try to at least speak to a couple of seniors to understand how the team is like, whether it is helpful, not helpful. At least you should be going into safer hands. I think that is in my mind more important than the domain choice itself, because अगर अच्छा टीम होगा आपको काम सीखने मिलेगा, you'll be able to focus on your CFA studies as well. I think you'll be more sorted. So that I think is absolutely super important. But thanks a ton, Ishita, for taking out the time and demystifying IDT articleship. It's very tough to see, that hardly is anyone very keen to go into IDT articleship, but it's important to address that. So thanks a lot to you for that. Super. Over to our next speaker, and I think this is one, I would say, area which I think most of those who filled the Google form are looking to get into. So Tushar is our next speaker. Tushar secured an All India rank 11 in the May 26th attempt, and he did his articleship in EVA valuation, if I'm not wrong. So over to you, Tushar. But Tushar also, I think, and it's great to see that so many people are interested in valuation, but to the best of my knowledge, valuation in general does not take a lot of articles. And I think in some shape or form, a lot of people want to get into valuations because people think valuations will help them get into IB, or in general, the nicer finance jobs, which I would not say is incorrect, but all I would say is it's not like an audit will not help you get into an IB. So maybe Tushar, if you could address that aspect as well, and given valuation is a very niche field, how did you end up managing getting into it? How many vacancies typically are there? How to apply? Just cover a little bit about that as well. Over to you, Tushar, and thanks to you for taking the time.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Divesh, for having me. First of all, congratulations to you all for becoming a CA finalist. Results were on the lower side this time, so kudos to you all for clearing it. A quick introduction about me. I am Tushar, cleared my CA in May 26, fortunate enough to get rank at both inter and final. Did my articleship. Sorry?
No.
Divesh, are you saying something?
Go ahead, Kavya. Go ahead, Tushar. I've muted everyone. I end up muting you as well. You'll have to unmute.
Yeah. So coming to the valuations part, I did my articleship in valuations from EY. What valuation typically in very basic sense is finding the worth or value of a company or an asset. There are various instruments of the company: equity shares, preference shares, convertible debentures, non-convertible debentures. So finding the worth or value of all of these instruments and the company as a whole is what valuation in the very basic sense is. Basic premise behind what valuation means for a CA is there are various regulatory requirements which needs a company to present a valuation report to various boards. It includes Companies Act, it includes SEBI, it includes Income Tax Rule 11 UA, it includes FEMA, and it also includes the purchase price allocation of India's 103. So for all of these regulatory requirements, a company needs a valuation report to present to their respective regulatory authorities. Hence, companies come to a registered valuer or a merchant banker for giving them this valuation report. What a valuation assignment typically looks like is you will start with preliminary engagement activities, which will involve basic research about the company, basic discussion from the client, shortlisting the comparable companies. Then you will go to the middle part, which will do the heavy lifting in valuations. It will include building the model from a forecast, which will come from the client. It will include finalizing the multiple. Multiple is basically you will apply a EV EBITDA or PE multiple from a similar company to your company to find the value of your company. So finalizing that multiple, finalizing the transaction multiple. This part is the main, this part will do the entire heavy lifting of the valuation engagement. And then you will go to writing a valuation report. What an CA article specifically do in this entire process is pretty much everything. You will be involved from right from the beginning to issue an valuation report. Obviously, at the starting of your articleship, you will be doing lots of legwork. You will be involved in more of the research part of the thing rather than the analysis part. You will be plotting the numbers. You will be analyzing the comparable companies. Then at the later stage, you will also be involved in analyzing the forecast of the client, whether it makes sense to give such a high valuation or not. You will be involved in finalizing the multiple. You will be involved in finding the cost of capital. So see, from the very basic sense, the skills you build in valuations are pretty much helpful. you get all the basic understanding of how to value a company by practically doing it rather than reading it from a book or from a firm or a firm subject. So from that way, yes, the skills you are building in valuations is pretty helpful. What is your day-to-day looks like is, so see, valuation is a profile with a lean team. So you will be working with managers or directors directly after a point of time. So the working hours will depend on your engagement. Engagements are time sensitive. So when the engagement is on fire, you will be burning the midnight oil. Other than that, it is pretty much decent. You will be leaving at 7 on one day. You will be leaving at 11 on one day. So it highly is very subjective and depends on the engagement. Uh, One good thing about EY valuation was it was a hybrid model. So you will be going to the office on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you will be working from home on Tuesday and Thursday. So that pretty much helps you in covering your studies and uh, getting a little break from your tedious day. So from the day-to-day perspective, I think valuation is more like any other profile in Big Four. Um, some very hard days, some very chill days. Uh, that was from the day-to-day perspective, from the best firms perspective, and what Divesh said, vacancies in valuation. So see, in Big Four, EY is the biggest hire of valuation profile, and I will not sugarcoat it or anything. They typically consider rankers for this profile. Uh, and the work experience at EY is pretty good in specifically in the valuations domain. I will not sugarcoat, but they only take the wrinkles. So coming to other big fours, Deloitte, PwC, and KPMG, they have their valuations vertical, but the people they are taking, I don't think they hire a lot of articles, one or two at max. EY typically hires 5 to 10 articles in this domain. Other firms, other mid-sized firms, Transaction Square do hire in valuations, RBS advisors do hire in valuations, and the other two, BDO and GT, they also do. But again, the number of vacancies in valuations are 2 to 4 per firms. So there are not very open roles in deal advisory and valuation space. But yes, you can try. If you have a rank, you can obviously apply for EY. If you don't, you can try in BDO, GT, or RBS advisors. If you are lucky enough, you will able to get through an interview. Uh, coming to coming to is valuation suitable for you and the pros and cons of valuation. So see, if I look at the biggest pro of valuation, it will be the skills you are building from this profile. You will be learning how to build a model. You will be learning how to actually value a company from coming from the bookish knowledge. It is a very niche profile, so it separates you from the crowd in that way. Coming to the cons, if you want, yeah, the Shivansh also said Deloitte do not usually hire in valuations. So yeah, I think neither of Deloitte, KPMG, and PwC hires in valuations. Okay, so coming to the cons of valuation, if you want to do your practice, valuation is not the field where you would want to go. Uh, if there will be very less client interaction in that way. So from the soft skills point of view, valuations will be below audit or tax. And the teams are lean, so you will not be able to make many of the articleship friends. So yeah, that is also one of the cons. Coming to the biggest part, because of which various people wants to go in valuation, is the exit opportunities you will get. So see, you will definitely get the skills you need for an IB or a PVC role. There is no doubt in it. But again, if you have a rank at finals, and if you have done articleship from a Big Four, there is valuation is not the thing which you due to which you will be preferred over an audit or a tax guy. It will be solely on the basis of your on a basis of the interview. Obviously you can do well in interview, but there is nothing like see thick IB and PVC is only for the valuation profile. So that is completely myth which is going on. uh what else? So yeah, if you are looking to get into valuations just for an exit opportunity point of view, it is not the domain for you. If you genuinely like the numbers, if you genuinely love to value a company, if you are investing in public markets from the beginning, then you will love valuations. Coming to the interview questions and how to prepare, given the CA syllabus is not covering it, I think the interview will revolve mostly around your firm subject. It will not be they will not ask you anything very, very complex. it will be basic questions around from what is the cost of what is the cost of capital, how our cash flows, what is the enterprise value, what is the equity value. So these are the very basic questions they will ask you. They will not ask you anything very complex. So just cover your affirm subject very well for the interview. I think that was it. Divesh, anything else I missed which I should touch upon?
No, I think that's all from I think what we needed to cover. But I think a lot of folks will have questions, so we'll wait for their questions. But before
Sure.
that, we have a couple of other speakers. If you could wait a little. But they're super insightful, Tushar. I think much needed clarity given everyone wants to get into valuations. So thanks a lot for your time. Guys, quickly moving to statutory audit again. I know stat audit we've already covered, but I think it's important to cover stat audit enough because not as many people really understand what stat audit is. I think there's some fear of stat audit for some reason. So I'll request Aarshi if she can cover her side of the story about stat audit. Over to you, Aarshi.
Yeah. So firstly, my fellow speakers has covered most of the audit which they have experienced. I just want to build on upon my experience in audit. So I think luckily I was fortunate enough to do both listed and private clients. I was involved in the listed audit of listed client for a certain period of time, and majorly was involved in the audit of fintech client during my articleship. So coming from the business understanding, which some speakers has highlighted that you don't get enough business understanding in your audit in Big Four. I think that is not the case, because you cannot audit anything without understanding what business is actually. So I think the core business understanding which you actually get in any of the field is audit, because I was involved in audit of fintech client. Fintech generally as an industry is very niche and people do not have major understanding. But I was luckily fortunate enough to do that audit and to get that understanding enough that how that fintech industry works. And it is the growing future. I have seen people working as an auditor in fintech clients and then moving into that industry also at a very good package and at a very good position, because once you audit, you give them good recommendations. The people in industry also recognize you and also respect you for that, and then they also give you good opportunities once you qualify. So I think that is one thing, that business understanding which you typically get in audit is not, it is, I think, is the best which you can get in across all the domains. Secondly, if you're fair, if you're you're fearing about how will you cover your studies along with audit, trust me, I was involved in the audit of fintech client, and it was an initial engagement with audit with Deloitte. So that was, I had to work extra. There were days when there is no single day when I've left office before 8, and there has been times when I have left office in 8 in the morning as well. So but at during my articleship, I had covered most of the lectures. When I started my study leave, I had done my all lectures. So I think managing your studies with I think the long working hours which audit requires is also like skill you have to develop in your time. And knowing that you have just 2 years in your articleship and you have permanent 6 months leave in your CA final journey will also help you, because you can do at least one lecture whenever you come from office. Just make it a fundamental thing that you have to complete one lecture whenever you come from your office, and I think that would help completing your studies. ऐसा नहीं है कि पढ़ाई नहीं हो पाएगी. I've seen people in audit getting all India rank. I myself has got all India rank. I think most of the articles which were there in my team, all I've cleared C in first attempt and all are rankers. So knowing that I have done so much working hours and then also getting a good rank is such a proof that you can also do that. So I think don't fear audit just because of the long working hours. I think in every field, whether you go in tax, whether you go in IDT, or whether you go in valuations, every domain has its own set of pros and cons. I think audit has some sort of seasons which are busy. If I talk about listed clients, your April, May, June would get busy. If I talk about private clients, your September, October, your August would get busy. But I think November, December, as Keertana said, will be a lean season for you. That is the much waited period for everyone in audit, and then at that time you can speed up your studies. So I think don't fear audit just because of the long working hours. Also, I just want to build upon one thing, that if you are unclear at this point of time that what do you want to do, just go for audit, I would say. Because audit is like a potato, like you can just fit into anything you want after you clear your CA final. Anything. If you have audit exposure, and as rightly mentioned by Divesh, most of the industries, like if you want to go into finance roles, they'll prefer audit over any other field, because audit gives you cross functional exposure also, because in audit you are doing your auditing tax, you're auditing fixed assets, you're auditing all the areas which you have. And I think that is, you cannot audit anything without understanding. If you're auditing tax, you're getting at least some basic understanding about tax, you're getting some basic understanding about GST. So I think that is not something that you will not get anything, you don't know anything about tax or GST. I think that is not the case. And stat audit gives you a good combination of internal audit as well, because doing testing controls also, then you will have a good understanding of internal audit, rather than if I want to go into internal audit, I would not have anything, no understanding about finance. I would not be able to read financial statement as such. So I think audit is the safest option if you're not clear about anything at this point of time. Exit opportunities obviously are great in audit, because you will have people prefer going into hiring candidates who has an experience in audit, because they know that this person knows something about the other. But rather than as somebody who has a niche exposure, I think if somebody wants to go in finance and he has an experience in tax or valuation as such, they might not have a good understanding about financials over a person who has an audit. So I think it's your decision you have to take at this point of time. And there's a common myth across people that you can't get into investment banking if you're done audit. I think that's not the case. I've seen my fellow peers getting into investment banking after getting audit. I think audit helps them in such case, because you get a good understanding about financials and you can build on your skills. There are multiple courses available on YouTube about how to do financial modeling, how to get understanding of IB. I think that can, because after you clear a CA finals, you have 2 or 3 months period that when you can build upon yourself. So I think that is a time when you can actually work on financial modeling, or you can actually work on investment banking if you want to get into that career. So I think audit gives you a mix of both. So just don't fear audit. I think that was something I want to highlight, as the other speakers have not mentioned. Just one thing, getting into Big Four is not that easy these days, because I do not want to sugarcoat anything, but I've seen after my attempt, or Deloitte basically has started to hire only rankers in Ender, or they have some good reference in partner reference or any director reference. So just don't get any false hopes or anything, but just be clear and keep searching everywhere else also. Just don't rely on Big Four. I don't want to get into Big Four only. Just keep giving interviews at whatever opportunity comes at your door, and keep trying at Big Four. I think no decision is right. You have to take a decision and make it right. So just don't feel that getting into Big Four will only build my career. That is not the case. You can build your career in any domain, in any firm. It's just that how you take that decision upon yourself. I think that is one thing I want to speak. Divesh, over to you.
No, super helpful, Aarshi. I think I fully agree with the analogy. It's a bit a funny analogy, but I think an interesting one that audit is like a potato. It definitely fits everywhere. And I fully agree, guys. I think most of you want to get into valuation, and rightly so, probably. But having said that, one, valuations may not have as many openings. And number two would be, it's not like only valuations will give you an edge into, investment banking or finance roles. In fact, I would say an audit profile is most likely the safest option, in the sense you can get into an FP&A role, you can get into industry, management consulting, investment banking, whatnot. So I would say don't fear audit. Having said that, I myself didn't want to get into audit when I was starting articleship, and I'll be very honest about it, which is I chose tax. But my reasons were partly different, in the sense I used to genuinely love tax, and I still do, by the way. And number two is we had a 3-year articleship, guys. So we used to, have our exams and the study leaves in the midst of the articleship. Versus you guys now have 2 years of articleship, so you'll have a dedicated study leave period of around 8 months, right? After your articleship gets over as well. So most of you will be going for what, May 29 of CA final attempts. Your articleship starts in, let's say, July or August of 26, ends by July or August of 28. You still have good 8 to 9 months of self study period. So even if you go for audit, hypothetically नहीं भी हुई इतनी पढ़ाई इन 2 सालों में, तो भी दिक्कत नहीं है, आपके पास आराम से 7-8 महीने है, guys, which is more than sufficient for 6 subjects. I used to have 8 subjects in CA final. So I would just say, don't worry. And if audit is giving you the exposure, you can go for it. Having said that, I'm not advocating for audit. I'm just saying be open to, fields like stat audit as well. Over to our next speaker, unless someone wants to add, over to our next speaker to cover internal audit as well. We have Sreekanth with us. Sreekanth secured in All India rank 10, if I'm not wrong, in the May 26 exams. Sreekanth is from Chennai. Sreekanth, you can unmute yourself, no worries. And Sreekanth has done his articleship from internal audit. So over to you, Sreekanth. Thanks a lot for taking out the time, and tell us all you know about internal audit.
Yeah, thank you, Divesh, for this opportunity. And firstly, congratulations to all the intermediate passed out students. Very big feat, half the bridge crossed. So kudos to all of you guys. So I'll be talking about internal audit as a domain for articleship. But guys, internal audit is usually a part of a larger domain, which is usually addressed as business advisory services. Some firms call it risk consulting. Some firms call it risk advisory, business consulting. So these are the domains in which internal audit is a part of, right? So I'll structure my talk. I'll first talk about why I chose internal audit slash business advisory, and then I'll talk about this domain in general and what a typical day in the life of an article would look like, some pros and cons, and then lastly but importantly, who should pick this domain, like who should target this domain, right? So these are the things that I'll be talking about. So basically, when I was doing my inter, I decided not to go into stat, audit, and tax, personal preference, and I was looking for areas which had something about business operations. I wanted to understand business operations from a grassroots level, something that was what I was interested about. So, and then back then in 2023, Big Fours were not hiring for business advisory or internal audits specifically. Like Aarshi addressed, stat audit also gives you certain amount of internal audit exposure. But I wanted to do something that's exclusively into business and operations, and then I chose business advisory from BDO. And so, what is internal audit all about? What is business advisory? So, basically, you look at a business, right? You look at the operations of a business and you review these operations. Like, for instance, let me give you an example. Any business has a lot of operations, right? Look, there's manufacturing, there is inventory management, there's going to be supply chain management, there's going to be revenue management, and there are some corporate functions, right? There is HR, there is finance and accounts, there is compliance management. So there are so many processes, so many functions based on which a business is run. So basically, as an internal auditor, you will pick a process, you will review the process from start to end, right? You will find areas within the process which are risky. You will find areas within the process which are prone to frauds. You will find areas where the costs are shooting up. You will find areas where the costs can be saved, and so on and so forth. So you look for risks and you look for control lapses within the process, and then you will give them a report saying, these are the risks in your process, and then you will help the business do their operations better. So that is basically what your end goal is. You will help improve their operations, you will help improve their business. For instance, like what an article usually does, 40% of an article's time goes into something called process understanding, where you will sit and talk to the client. You will sit and talk to the people. The catch is you'll talk to people across different hierarchies. You'll talk to, say C-suite level. You'll also talk to somebody like a loadman who's at the grassroots of the operations. You'll talk to people across the hierarchy, and then you'll understand their operations. Sometimes you go to the factory, you go to the premise where the client is located. You will oversee the shop floor. You'll see where things are moving around. You see who are the people involved. You see what are the systems involved, and then you do a lot of data analytics. You get all the data that you want. Sometimes you get access to the systems, and then you pull out the data points. You do any number of procedures that you want. Unlike stat audit, here you're not confining yourself to finding problems or something. You do anything that is a part of the process. You get you're free to do any number of procedures, although there are certain specific procedures that you're supposed to do, but then you can go beyond, and then at the end you will come up with an observation. For instance, say if you're internal auditing manufacturing process of a client, say you're saying the scrap generation, the scrap output is abnormal. So you're going to say why it's happening, what is the root cause. Say a particular machine is not working well, you're going to look at the repair schedule, and then you're going to say that the repair maintenance has not been done because of which the scrap output is abnormal. So you're going to do a lot of business analysis. It's what internal audit is all about. And then finally, in your report, you're going to say this is the problem, and these are the risks, and you're also going to say what is the root cause of these problems, why is this problem happening, and then you're going to give them recommendations, industry best practices. You're going to tell them, fix these controls, have these controls in place so that you'll not have these problems, and then you're going to discuss with them these observations and risks, and then you're going to arrive at their responses, and then you're going to conclude on a timeline. You're going to follow up on the timeline. So an article basically does everything that I've just said, right? So it's a very, very comprehensive area of work. An internal audit project usually varies from 1 or 2 months to 6 to 7 months, depending on how big the project is. And I was fortunate to work on multiple projects at a time, and I was also involved in multiple industries. So see, the biggest advantage of this in this domain of articleship, right, is basically when you say internal audit manufacturing process of a client, you also do internal audit manufacturing of another client within the same industry. It's going to be totally different. right? The same internal audit that you do across different clients, even within the same industry, it's going to be extremely diverse. So it will be a very good learning. And so who should really be picking this domain, right? So if you're somebody who wants to go above and beyond just the financial statements analysis, right? If you're somebody who is interested to understand the business operations at the grassroots level, say you want to sometime enter into management consulting, although I'm not saying internal audit is a prerequisite for management consulting, but it really helps you get a good grip over the operations of a business. So if you're somebody who is interested in these areas, this is the domain to look out for. But however, let me also warn you that this is a very travel intensive area of work. You're required to travel intensely and you are stationed at very remote places, so it's a very travel intensive work. So if you are somebody who doesn't prefer traveling, then this is really not a good domain to look out for. And at the same time, uh, I would say it's a very rarely picked up domain, right? So people usually go into audit and tax, but if you're somebody who wants to understand business operations and do a lot of analytical procedures, and by the way, you will deploy wide range of tools of analysis. There's a lot of variety in the work. So if you're somebody who's looking out for all these areas, then this is really the domain you should go for. Yeah, I think over to you, Divesh.
Super helpful, Shrikant, for detailing out internal audit. I think very few people who I know have chosen articleship in internal audit, but definitely a great experience given you understand the business in and out. So thanks for shedding some light on it. I think Sachin wanted to add a couple of points regarding stat audit. So just spotlighting Sachin as
Yeah,
well. Thanks, Shrikant.
I will just take 1 minute. Already Naamya has waited a lot, so I think the exit. I will like to add on upon the exit opportunities from stat audit. I have done 1 year of stat audit in BDO, and then moved to corporate finance department in ITC Limited for industrial training. So the and in fact, after getting into ITC Limited, when I spoke to my manager after 3 to 4 months, then he actually told that your CV contained the stat audit experience even from a big six, and the client you mentioned that helped you to land in the FP&A department in ITC Limited. So I think that is very important that you never underestimate the stat audit department, and you will have the major exit opportunities from it. So yeah, that's it from my side. Over
Thanks a
to you.
lot, Sachin. No, I think it definitely does help. Like we discussed earlier, stat audit is like a potato which
Yeah,
keeps
yeah,
all options open, and definitely
yeah.
as far if you've covered a few industries, definitely that really helps. Over to Namya, who has waited a lot. So sorry for having you wait a lot, Namya, but thanks a lot for taking out the time, guys. Namya has volunteered. She's done her articleship from KPMG in Chandigarh, so she wanted to share her experience about how articleship, in I would say tier one B cities like an Ahmedabad or a Pune or maybe a Jaipur or a Chandigarh are different from articleship in the metros. So over to you, Namya. She's pursued her articleship in KPMG Chandigarh in stat audit, and she's of course an all India ranker in the Jan 26 exams. So over to you, Namya, and thanks for waiting this while.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Divesh. Congratulations, first of all, to all the pass outs of CA Inter May 26. All the best for your future, first of all. So, a brief background. I pursued my articleship from KPMG Chandigarh, just as Divesh told you all. And I was fortunate enough to get a rank at both levels, inter as well as final. So, my articleship was in SAT audit. When I compared my work at KPMG Chandigarh to articles who were pursuing their work, pursuing stat audit at KPMG Gurugram. And now that I've started my job, I'm interacting with people from GT, video, etc. So I realized that a lot of difference was there in the scope of work. I, from day one, was not involved in any form of testing, any form of vouching. Initially, when I went to the Chandigarh office, I saw that it was a very small office and I had my doubts and apprehensions. But I realized that I was allocated from the next day onwards. I had a different type of experience. I was not involved in any vouching, any testing. I was given some form of, from day one, from the first year itself, I was held accountable and responsible, which obviously helped me in a lot of ways. I was involved in IPO engagements, limited reviews, stat audits of listed companies, private limited companies, first time adoption of India's, initial audit engagements, a lot of different types. Tax audits. There were people who were in the first year of articleship itself. They were handling certain really important certificates for listed clients as well. articles who were doing that completely on their own. In my first year of articleship, I was also in an IPO engagement, and I was given the responsibility of managing a very crucial document certificate, and not just executing the work, but also managing it and dividing the work among the team members, coordinating with them, and then further getting it reviewed by my manager and partner all on my own. So that helped me in developing a lot of responsibility and accountability. Second benefit, I would say, was the type of support that I got from the partners and the managers there. Because it was a very small 20 to 25 people office, we were interacting with the partner on our own on an everyday basis in case we had any form of apprehensions or doubts regarding the type of engagement that we were working on, or any form of personal reservations as well. They were happy enough and they were supportive enough to deal with them and help me get through the phase of final preparation as well as articleship. In case you have any apprehensions, like you are not comfortable with a particular team, or if you're not comfortable with a particular engagement or travel or any form of problems that you face, they were supportive enough to deal with that. Thirdly, I would say that a lot of new clients were coming up in that area. The partner was very willing to pitch to new clients. So you got an idea of how to pitch to new clients, understanding the businesses, etc. Then I would say there were a lot of new opportunities in that area during that time regarding IPOs, QIPs, etc. A lot of clients were getting private placements. So different types of exposures were given to different people. And obviously, because it is a small office, you get to experience all types of clients that are there. It's not that you're restricted to one particular team. You're obviously dealing with and interacting with those people in the office and understanding what is happening on their engagements. And it is an all-rounded development. Then I would say that a lot of research tasks were also falling upon us, because the manager would say that you need to research it out on your own and then give me a particular solution. You were not just giving the problems to the manager, you were also helping them find solutions. And lastly, the benefit that was the most attractive to me at that point was that it was in my hometown. Obviously, I had the comfort of my hometown during my articleship and CA final preparation phase. And not just that, in case there are few people that I know that who pursued their articleship from KPMG Chandigarh, and then obviously did a few jobs here and there, and then decided to start a practice of their own in their hometown as well. So it helps to develop a lot of connections within your hometown and establish a thriving practice here. So that was the pros that I felt were there in during my articleship phase. I would say the biggest con would be that there is not a lot of alumni or networking that can happen in a smaller office. The problem that I faced while finding a job post qualification was that I did not know a lot of people in Gurugram or in Bombay, which meant that I had to look out for LinkedIn connections and cold messaging, etc. But in case you're in a bigger office, you're obviously interacting with a lot of people. There are people who are pursuing industrial trainings or people who are pursuing different kinds of jobs post qualification. So you get a good alumni network there. Second disadvantage was obviously that you were not working with larger groups and larger clients. But I think that is offset, because in case you are working on a client, if it is listed or if it is not listed, you're working on a client because you're from the very first year onwards, you're given the responsibility of doing revenue, inventory, CARO reports, audit reports. I was also given the responsibility of working on the financial statements from the first year onwards. So that was offset by the disadvantage of not working on larger groups, wherein you may only be involved in documentation work, or you may only be involved in vouching and documentation work. And thirdly, there may be phases where they do not have opportunities herein, and you may have to travel to Delhi or Bombay to work on clients of other partners, or clients of the same partner who are located there. But nevertheless, I got an experience across different industries: FMCG, steel industry, pharmaceuticals, service industry, trading sector. So it was an overall good experience for me. That is all from my side, and good luck to you all.
Super helpful, Naamya, and thanks for waiting till the end. Guys, I think one thing I can add, Naamya, is it's pretty relatable because I did my articleship in Deloitte Ahmedabad as well. Was hometown for me, and I really felt the benefit of being there at home and preparing for CA final from the comfort of your home. Actually, for me, I felt if it were to be a difference between, Mumbai direct taxation versus Ahmedabad direct taxation, I would have probably Mumbai would have been a little better in terms of exposure. But having said that, was objectively the exposure that I got in Ahmedabad good enough? The answer is an absolute yes. So it's a best of both worlds, where you get to stay in your hometown, you get to go to a big four, and also end up learning some work. So why not? But of course, depends on whether you are placed in cities like you're an Ahmedabad or a Baroda or a Pune or a Jaipur or a Chandigarh. So I think, guys, that summarizes all the speakers' experiences that they wanted to share, but opening the floor for any questions. So what we can do is you can put your questions in the chat box and we will take these questions one by one. Happy to answer. Any questions you guys have, just put it in the chat box. Okay. Thank you, Jia. Jia clearly has waited until this moment to note down all her questions. So thanks a lot, Jia. Okay, so for Sreekanth, you're talking about internal audit. I think these are questions for Sreekanth, I believe. Sreekanth, why don't you take these up if you are available?
Yeah, Divesh, give me a minute. I'm just going through it.
No problem. I'll just read those myself. Maybe I'll just read out loud because the session is getting recorded. So what are the exit opportunities after internal audit? We will be able to switch to any other domains after doing articles for internal audit. You mentioned it was travel intensive and could be stationed in remote locations. So generally how long the travel is, what are the working hours, what are the work repetitive in Big Four or Big Six, what are the good firms for internal audit? And in general, should there be a photo on your resume? How does the ATA system consider resumes? For someone aiming for IB, would it be better to go for valuations or M&A tax? I'll say, you should add audit as well to the list. For Tushar, if someone has got 400 plus, is the chance of getting an interview at your evaluations. Okay, maybe go ahead with Sreekanth first, and then we can decide who answers the remaining.
Yeah, thank you, Jia, for the question. I'm just going to answer it one by one. So, what are the exit opportunities after internal audit? See, exit opportunities is as good as any other domain, right? So, if you want to get into finance, or if you want to get into management consulting, or if you want to get into IB, see, if you have a rank in CA final, I think there should not be any barrier for you to switch. I think Ishita also rightfully emphasized this. However, there are some firms, like Divesh also said, that will look for specifically stat audit articles, right? Because it's easier to go into corporate finance or sometimes the finance specific roles that the firm are looking out for. So there are some companies that will only hire stat audit articles, but overall, I don't think there's any big issue with this switch, right? And then you mentioned it was travel intensive and could be stationed in remote locations. So generally, how long the travel is? Okay, it depends on the client that you're working on. Sometimes the travel is for a few days, but sometimes the travel can go for like 2 to 3 months as well. The longest I've been to was for 3 to 4 months in Kerala, which is very remote. So again, you can come back every weekend, but usually you're required to go for a very a reasonable period of time, say on an average for 1 week. So it depends on the client. And what are the working hours in internal audit? Again, it depends on the engagement that you're working on. Sometimes, see, there are some lean periods where the work is not very much, where you can go at 10 a.m. and come back home by 7 p.m. But there are also certain periods where you are required to, burn the midnight oil, like Tushar said, where you might have to extend hours. It can go up to 12 a.m., 1 a.m. in the morning. So, yeah, so basically the working hours are pretty much similar to the stat audit, and then was the work of internal audit repetitive in Big Four or Big Six? See, there is no repetition, right? Like I told, there's a lot of variety. Even if you do an internal audit of the same process across two different clients within the same industry, it's going to be entirely different because they use different processes, different systems, the people are different. So the approach to internal audit is also very much different. There's hardly any repetition. Even if you do the internal audit of the same client again, after some point, after a few months, if you're doing the same work, you will still end up doing very much different work, right? So the work is hardly repetitive. And about the Big Fours, right? So in 2023, when I was applying for articleship, Big Fours never hired for internal audit, although they had a designated internal audit department and they hire CA qualified people, but then they didn't hire articles back then. But then even now, I'm sure that there is hardly any vacancies in Big Fours. But however, in GT and BDO, they actively hire for internal audit. They have separate teams for that. And in all the mid-sized firms, you'll get a good exposure there as well. What are good firms for internal audit apart from Big Six? Okay, that's a good question. If you're for which location are you interested, Gia? Like, because if you're looking for Chennai, there are a few firms that I can recommend apart from Big Six. But usually there is Sharp and Tannen.
As about to say.
And there's a firm called PKF in Chennai, based out of Chennai. It's a mid firm, but big enough, very good exposure. And yeah, I think those are two firms that come top of my mind when I think about it. Should a photo be there on your resume? Okay, and how does the ATA system consider resumes with photo being included? Okay, so I think I'm out of a little depth here, but usually we do not put our photos on the resumes. It's generally uploaded separately. In resumes, you add hyperlinks of all your profiles, projects, but usually photos are uploaded separately depending on where you're applying for. And Divesh, if you have anything to add on that.
I did not put a photograph, and I could say you could avoid putting, but I mean, at least I don't know about the ATA system, how it works with photos, but I think even if you want to put, it's fine, but not that it'll make a difference. So might as well be safe and not put it. And that's how I put it. Maybe the next one.
I can cover Divesh.
Yeah, Tushar, go ahead. A lot of questions for you.
Yeah. So first of all, on the M&A tax versus valuation, see, as I said earlier, it is not that if you have taken M&A tax, you cannot go to IB. IB is definitely open for an M&A tax, for an audit, as much as it is for evaluation. But if you're asking me point blank, see, I have board offers, what should I choose? So I would say valuations, because of the skills you will be building there will be more relevant to the IB. So that is on the valuations versus M&A tax part. The second question is 400 marks. Okay, so EY valuations, I will say is they approach the rankers. Samne se they do not take your resumes. So I think if you ask me objectively, it is a no. But again, if you have some good reference, some good manager level people or if you can send some work of yours on LinkedIn, some financial model you have built, or something very interesting to some manager or someone, they might consider you, but they will not approach you from their end. So that is on the how to get into EY valuations. Thirdly, on the interview part, what questions you will be asked in interview. So firstly, be very clear with the financials. And by financials, I mean, one is the general set of financials. Second is what you have learned in the firm, from the revenue to the EBITDA, what adjustments you are making in EBITDA. Be very clear with the AS. All the AS you should know, be very clear with everything in a firm. So see, the interview will be very technical in terms of your knowledge about what you have learned in CA Intel. It will not be anything else apart from your CA Intel knowledge. So just be very clear with your CA Intel, especially accounting and financial management. So that is on the interview part. That was it, Divesh, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that was it. The next question, I think there's a question from Kavya, but Kavya unfortunately has had to drop. Shivansh, if you are around, if you could take up that question around direct tax. I know you did articleship in TP, but it's similar. So if you're around, otherwise I can address that one. No worries.
I just missed your question. Yeah, I'm there. I just missed the question. Can you just repeat it?
Yeah. So the question is, as I have preferred for direct tax from articleship, can I think of industrial training for the second year of my articleship? And would I be able to change the domain after the first year?
Yes, so I think if you have worked in direct tax for 1 year and if you find that work is not good enough or you're not getting opportunity enough, then only you should shift to industrial training. Otherwise, industrial training would not add that much value if you work for 2 years into direct tax. Anyways, after qualifying, you will get opportunities to switch. That is for sure. And even majority of the companies that come in campus, they prefer tax guys over audit. That is the fact that we have to agree. And I have seen it in my case as well. So even 4 of us who got selected in a company were the tax guys. So I think that should not be that point of concern. If you don't like tax, then you should definitely switch if you're getting into industrial.
Yeah, I think one overarching question is, guys, for a lot of you are asking, can I go for industrial training after first year? Irrespective of the domain, you can always go for industrial training if you want to. If you feel like going, you can always go for industrial training in the second year. Whether or not you should is a personal choice. That really depends on a lot of factors. For example, for me, I did not go for industrial training because I was pursuing my full-time articleship at Deloitte, which I felt was giving me a good exposure. And industrial training would have made me shift to Mumbai from an Ahmedabad, so I did not prefer. But these days, a lot of people prefer going to, for example, a BCG industrial. And I think Sachin has done his industrial training, so maybe Sachin, if you can pitch in here.
Yeah, actually, I would like to add on it. In first year of my articleship only, the situation was like I was allotted major FSAs, financial statement areas, like revenue and operating expenses. I had worked upon it, although not independently, of course, but I had worked with the associate, and would get have got an idea about what is the process, what does it look like, how the work paper is made. So if you get enough exposure in the first year articleship, obviously it would be rare, but I think you should go for industrial training thereafter, because I thought, as per my view, I thought at my time it was like in second year I would not be adding much value, whatever the work would be allocated to me. So for that, my personalized experience, I had decided to go for industrial training. So it would be your
So
personal choice for sure. Yeah.
one more point, just a small point to add over it. Like if you pursue articleship for entire 2 years or 3 years into a big four, they usually give you a designation above what usually a chartered accountant starts from entry level. So that is also a point of like,
Agreed.
it's a very good point to think upon. If you want to continue, if you like the work and if you want to build a career in it, I would say stay in big four and then negotiate for a higher pay and a 1+ designation. So you would be just skipping 2.5 years of your fast track, like it would be your designation skip, and you would be starting at 30-40% higher than industry average. So that
Perfect.
works
Agreed
in,
with this. Yeah.
yeah.
This view is
All I would say is, guys, it's again, it's a lot subjective, because I'll give you an example. So, for example, and I fully agree with what Shivansh said, but I'll give you another nuance. For example, if BCG, you've done your industrial training, and if you get a PPO, then you won't have to sit for,
Yeah.
placement after qualifying. You will directly, whether or not you get a rank in CA final, if you've qualified for the PPO, you get a job at BCG. Plus, if you've done your industrial training at BCG, for example, and just I'm quoting one example, there could be numerous. Then, for example, you could skip 6 months and you could directly start 6 months senior. So ifs and buts are there, if you've done articleship in a particular industry, the same logic might apply there also, because they might probably be ready to retain you after being a CA. So I'm just saying, you will have to look at the particular scenario, what is at stake, what is at offer in that industrial training opportunity, and is it worth giving up the second year of your articleship? But it's too early for you to take that decision right now. Complete your first year of articleship, and then towards the end of that year, see how you're liking the team, how you're liking the work. If you've already learned all the work, there's much more to understand, and the opportunity that you are getting in industrial training, and only then decide. It's too early to decide from now. And the job versus practice question, I know Samay has answered, and I partially agree with Samay's answer, but I would still say it's very uncertain. It's more like, if you are at a 60-70% practice, go for a small mid-sized firm. But if you are at 60-70% job, I would say be safe and go for more like a big four, and you can always learn later. I mean, there's no right answer over here. You can go with where your inclination slightly is. Okay, so the question is, should you go for a big four and take an audit or a tax, or should you go for a niche domain like a valuation or an FDD, but go for a mid-size or a smaller firm for that niche domain? I don't know if anyone has a perspective over here. Tushar, Samay, Sachin, Shivansh. I have my perspective, but anyone wants to add to this question? Should you go for a mid-size firm plus a niche domain, or should you go for a big
I
four
think I
and
can
take an
take
audit?
up this question.
Go ahead,
Because yeah, a couple of my friends working. So basically, it depends upon the clientele base ultimately. Like if you are, I have seen working, like a friend of mine working as an Incorp advisory, a Mumbai-based firm in IBM, and then he switched to Bloom Ventures or something like VC. So basically, these firms, the niche firms, PVC firms like this, they prefer your work ex rather than the brand name. Yeah, brand name also matters to them, but then it will be subjective. Like it's a double-edged sword. Like it can go either ways. But if you are able to present that work X in a good fashion, and if you are getting shortlisted, so again that thing sum up. If you are getting shortlisted for that criteria, so yeah, valuation everybody. If you really want to pursue that after post qualification, then you should go, even if you are not getting big four, but go for a boutique firm with good clientele base. So at least speak with 3-4 couple of people working there before finalizing anything.
Samay, do you want to add something?
I think I do agree with what Shivansh said. It's all about what you want to do in your future. So if you are very sure about valuation FDD, so just go for it from right now,
Yes.
because that will open the doors. But even if you are unsure and you are just buzzing around the question, I would think in that case, Big Four might help as a brand tag.
Absolutely agree. Go for the safer choice. I absolutely agree over here. Last, I think, a couple of more questions, and post which we can end. We've already exceeded the time. From Hayden, I'm not sure if there's a perfect pronunciation. Within the field, is there some sort of a difference between two firms within a Big Four? I would say not. However, typically from experience and from what I've heard, typically speaking, EY has a better sort of name in the industry in terms of the work quality. But having said that, please take this with a big caveat and a pinch of salt, because it really depends on the domain and the location as well. And also at the same time, EY is known for more work, so to say, because more work and good work, you could connect it. Having said that, I would say a Big Four is a Big Four. I don't think there's a lot of differentiation eventually post qualification as long as it is Big Four. So I wouldn't say you should solve for a particular brand a lot, but you should definitely try to solve for a particular team. If you have a senior in a particular team who say, let's say KPMG is better or Deloitte XYZ team is better, if you're getting into that team, why not go for it? So that's what I would say. What is industrial training? Should anyone do that if someone goes for practice? How it helps in CA profession? For practice, I wouldn't say industrial training would help, honestly. I would say just stick to your articleship. What if you want to do a job for 3-4 years and then practice? In that case, also, if you eventually want to go for a practice, might as well stick to either a Big Four articleship or articleship with a mid-sized firm rather than go for industrial training if you anyways know that work might not help. If practice, which domain? That's a good question. If practice, which domain? So first of all, the question is, are you going for a small mid-sized firm or are you going for a Big Four? If you are going for a small firm, you will get an exposure across domains any which ways. But if you're planning to go for a bigger firm or a Big Four, then which domain? This becomes controversial. I would say this is where you will have to take a call basis your liking and what you want to learn. One big caveat I will give is, practice typically one ends up getting smaller clients versus Big Four will have bigger clients. So whether you go for audit or you go for tax, the kind of work will be very different for, let's say, a corporate big client, both in tax as well as audit versus what you'll do in practice at a relatively smaller scale. Samay, if you have a perspective over here.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what Divesh said. It depends. If you want to do core practice in taxation, so choosing a field like corporate tax or transfer pricing helps. But if you want to go with audit, audit or finance transformation kind of practice, so statutory audit, internal audit plays picture over there. Yeah, both are preferable. Even you can go for a Big Four if you want a big client base. But what I have generally seen with my colleagues who have just started with the practice, usually practice starts with smaller clients and end up getting big clients. So in that case, getting small clients, your locality, your connections network also matters. So it completely depends on what you want to do ahead. So either ways works.
For an M&A tax interview, what exactly should you prepare? Anyone who wants to answer this question? I think this one is the last question we'll take up. Does anyone have an idea of good mid-sized firms in Mumbai? I think we can take that offline. M&A tax interview. Samay, do you want? Actually, Samay, you did your articleship in audit. So maybe I can take this up unless Shivansh you want to add. So, guys, for M&A tax, I would just say you should prepare tax very well. Your intermediate direct tax course should be very well prepared. Of course, you wouldn't know the nth level details of what M&A provisions, etc., would be, at least from a CA inter perspective. I would at least say just prepare your direct tax course very well and research a little bit and have a perspective. If I was an interviewer, I would ask you, why do you want to get into an M&A tax profile? What, according to you, is the work that we do in M&A tax profile? You should be able to answer these two questions apart from just studying about a direct tax course. I think that's what I would say, unless Shivansh, you have anything to add.
Yeah, I would like to add a couple of points. So basically, like M&A tax interviews, I also got selected for M&A tax in some other domain when I started with the article. So particularly, they usually test the direct tax knowledge, and they also want to know that if you are aware about the deals that are going on in the market, or if there is any famous nuances that particularly tax has created in a deal or sort of that. If you are able to read one or two case laws regarding that or a market deal for one or two, I think that will give an edge in your interviews, and that will help.
Absolutely. I fully agree. And I think that was the last question, guys. But once again, thanks a lot to all our speakers, panelists who took out the time today. Once again, Shivansh, Samay, Sachin, Tushar, Aarshi, Ishita, Naamya, Sreekanth, and Keertana, all of you. And guys, for those of you who attended, I see a lot of heart reactions and thumbs up reactions. So clearly this was helpful for all the attendees. Really glad it helped, guys. Thanks for attending. And once again, heartfelt appreciation for all the panelists who took out the time on a Sunday morning, all pro bono, just to give it back to the community. So really, really appreciate you taking out the time, guys. Thanks a lot. And hey, guys, I hope this was helpful. We'll also upload this on YouTube so that if any of your friends could not join, they can also refer to this and you can share the link with all your friends as well. So thanks a lot. Thanks again, everyone. See you. Bye-bye. And for those of you watching this on YouTube, do subscribe to this channel. Bye, guys. All the best. Bye, guys.